Ah, there you are, traveller. Ready for another tale of demonic sorcerers, towering giants, vicious hobgoblins, and implacable skeletal hordes? Then we'll begin. It's a 2,000-point battle of Tomb Kings versus Chaos Dwarfs, and we're playing the breakpoint scenario. Army lists are in the video description should you wish to peruse them, and I'll briefly go over the armies now as well. Here are my dusty boys. I decided to change things up a bit, and not include the Necrosphinx or any scorpions, which have both performed incredibly well in most of my previous battles. I'm trying out a king on Warsphynx for the first time, who's equipped with the Armour of Silvered Steel, Talisman of Protection, Ruby Ring of Ruin, and a great weapon. My core's made up of a block of 28 Spear Skellies, 29 Tomb Guard, with the Banner of the Desert Winds, which gives them a reserve move, and 3 Chariots. I'm not quite finished with the Chariots yet, and they're currently crewless, but they'll do in a pinch. Rounding out the army are 3 Necropolis Knights, 3 Ushabti with bows, and a Necrolith Colossus. Oh, and my other characters are a level 4, a level 1, and a Tomb Prince with the impressive-sounding Crook and Flail of Radiance. On to the Chaos Dwarfs. They have an Iron Demon, 18 Black Orcs with an assortment of weapons, and a huge unit of Hobgoblins with bows. Next, a level 4 Sorcerer Prophet on foot, and a Black Orc Warboss on a Chariot, with a great weapon and the Trollhide Trousers. A Dreadquake Mortar, 18 Infernal Guard with hand weapons and shields, 10 ambushing Hobgoblins, and some Wolf Riders led by a Khan round out their list. Here's deployment. My constructs and infantry take the centre, with the Chariots and Snake Riders on the right, and Ushabti on the left. The eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed by now that my level 1 priest is actually just a skeleton with a standard, as I foolishly left him on my painting table at home. And the back rank of Tomb Guard is being filled out by regular skellies too. Chaos Dwarfs have their Iron Demon and Black Orcs deployed on the left, with the centre held by Infernal Guard, the Chariot, and the Hobgoblins, and their Wolf Riders on the right. I finish deploying first and get the first turn, so here's movement. My centre trundles forwards as fast as possible. My level 1 priest's only spell is Xar's Incantation of the Desert Wind, and he successfully casts it on my king, who uses it to get a bit further forward, although outside of the enemy's charge ranges. In shooting, my king successfully uses the Ruby Ring to hurl a fireball at the Black Orcs, but rolls snake eyes for the number of hits and doesn't end up killing anything. Damn. A couple of the Ushabti can see the Iron Demon through the forest on the left, as we're playing the forests as areas of dangerous terrain instead of fully line-of-sight blocking. Their bolts strike home, but don't manage to wound it. I have better luck on the right, though, as the Chariots manage to plink off a few of the Hobgoblins with some remarkably competent bowfire. In Chaos Dwarfs turn 1, the main battle line doesn't move much, with the Black Orcs backing up a bit to hopefully avoid the wrath of my king next turn. The Hobgoblins on the right pour return bowfire into my Chariots, doing a few wounds, but it's the Hobgoblin Khan, who has his own Ruby Ring, a cheap copy no doubt, who does most of the damage. He gets something like 10 hits or so, and when all's said and done, 2 whole Chariots have bitten the dust. They also took a hit from the mortar, robbing them of swift stride. On the other side of the field, the Iron Demon targets the Colossus, but rolls poorly and does nothing. So, it's on to my turn too. The last remaining Chariot attempts a futile charge into the Hobgoblins, but dies to their stand and shoot. The king sets a better example, fortunately. Buffing up his movement with my will be done, he just about makes his charge into the Black Orcs. Oh, and I know the wings on the howdah are a bit sloppy. I'll be attempting to tidy them up at some point. Everything else is still too far away to make a charge, so moves up like so. Not much happens magic-wise, but I miscast some inconsequential spell or other, and end up taking a wound on both priests. In shooting, the Ushabti managed to do 2 wounds to the Iron Demon. So this combat is very risky. If my king loses combat and gets pushed back 2 inches, he'll be in the charge arc of the Iron Demon, and will likely get flattened by its horrific impact hits next turn. I absolutely need to win. The Black Orc champion issues a challenge, which I have to accept. He gets flattened many times over, of course, but the Orcs have 2 ranks, a standard, and the War Banner. Fortunately, I do just enough wounds with overkill to win combat by 1 point, and the Orcs fall back, with my king following up. Ha! The gambit paid off. Chaos Dwarfs turn 2. The Iron Demon attempts a charge on the Colossus, but fails. The Infernal Guard and Black Orc Warboss move forward to menace my Tomb Guard, and the Hobgoblin ambushes come on from my board edge, just out of shot at the back. The Wolf Riders move round to the flank of the Necropolis Knights. Hobgoblin Bowfire and the Ruby Ring puts paid to 1 knight, and the speedy goblins then use their reserve move to dart round behind them. The ambushing Hobgoblins, sorry, there's 11, not 10 like I said earlier, are able to target my level 1 priest, due to foolish positioning on my part. I didn't actually expect them to be very threatening, to be honest, but with throwing weapons, 2 shots each, and ballistic skill 4, they easily slay the priest. I'm just thankful it wasn't my level 4. In combat, my king slays 3 orcs, taking no wounds in return. We draw combat, and I give ground, thanks to the orc's musician. He must be making one heck of a din to force my towering Warsphynx back. Tomb Kings turn 3. Lots of charges this turn. The Colossus charges the Iron Demon. The Tomb Guard charge the Infernal Guard, after my priest gets off a cheeky desiccation, giving the dwarfs -1 strength and toughness, and the Snake Riders charge the big unit of Hobgoblins. My level 4 joins the skeletons to get away from the ambushers. No shooting or magic to speak of, so it's combat. One thing I forgot to mention is that the Sorcerer Prophet, who has by this point joined the Infernal Guard, cast Ash Cloud last turn, which makes my units within 9 inches of him suffer -1 to hit. I'm still confident of crushing this unit, though, due to desiccation and my vastly superior numbers. Well, it doesn't quite go to plan. Even with the help of my prince, I kill 0 dwarfs, lose a whole rank in return, and get pushed back. Yeah. The Colossus manages no wounds and takes 1 in return. The knights kill their fair share of goblins and suffer just 1 wound themselves, but it quickly becomes apparent that they've bitten off more than they can chew and won't be able to cleave through these goblins before being surrounded and crushed. The king kills a couple more Black Orcs, but loses combat again and is pushed back once more. Dawi Zar turn 3. The Sorcerer Prophet buffs up his unit with Demonic Vessel and Ash Storm and charges back into the Tomb Guard, supported by the Black Orc Warboss in the flank. The Iron Demon charges into the Colossus, but fortunately for me, it doesn't get impact hits, as it only charged 2 inches. The Wolf Riders attempt a long charge into the rear of the knights, but fail. The Mortar manages to kill 3 skeletons with a glancing strike. Right, it's combat time. The central combat sees the Tomb Guard ravaged, with 11 slain outright, and 5 more making regeneration saves. The combined combat resolution is enough to just about crumble the remaining Tomb Guard and Prince in one fell swoop. Ouch! The Warboss reforms to face the knights, and the dwarfs face my king. Over here, the Colossus somehow does 2 wounds to the demon, taking just 1 in return. We're left with 3 wounds apiece, although our dice show different numbers because we count our wounds differently. The goblins manage to drag down another Necropolis Knight for a few casualties in return. And the king has a pretty good round of combat this time, winning and forcing the orcs to give ground. Slowly but surely, he's whittling them down. My turn 4. The High Priest hatches a cunning plan. He casts Plague of Rust onto the Iron Demon and leads his skeleton horde into a frontal charge against it to help out the Colossus. The king charges back into the orcs. The right flank is utterly lost, but there's still hope on the left. with a bit of luck and a good desert wind at our back. The priest's plan is sound, and although the demon survives, it does suffer another wound. I should also mention that the priest healed the Colossus back up to full this turn, using his hieratic jar. The last remaining knight slays 2 goblins and survives on 1 wound remaining. The king continues his relentless assault and leaves just 6 orcs left alive now, having killed 12 so far. Still, the melee rages on. In Chaos Dwarfs turn 4, the sorcerer's unit fails an attempted charge into the king. The wolf riders charge the rear of the knight. The mortar can only fire at the Ushabti, but the shot scatters harmlessly away. The last knight is obviously destroyed in combat, but on the other side of the battlefield, a couple of minor miracles occur. Firstly, the king slays 5 of the remaining 6 orcs. The last orc flees off the board, and the king pursues him. Well, thanks Cetra for that. I've actually killed a unit. Secondly, with Plague of Rust still active, the combined assault from the spears and Colossus are just about enough to rob the Iron Demon of its last wound. We actually did it. We brought the beast down at long last. I believe the phrase is, "Hell to the Yizes," or something to that effect. The Colossus turns round to glare at the Sorcerer Prophet in stoic triumph. Unfortunately, we have to end the game at this point due to store closure, but I was also happy to concede here anyway, as by this point it was fairly clear that the dwarfs had won. By our reckoning, the dwarfs have lost 39 unit strength, whereas the Tomb Kings have lost 59. We also did a rough calculation of normal points, and the Tomb Kings have killed about 600 points, whereas the dwarfs have killed around 1,000. So, the Chaos Dwarfs claim their first victory over my undying legion. I definitely felt the lack of my more powerful construct units, and it's a shame the Chariots didn't get to do anything. Still, it was another fun game, and I enjoyed trying out new units. The King on Sphinx, although not very flashy, got the job done in the end, and I wouldn't mind trying out a Sphinx-heavy army one day. I've also got a royal host in my sights, and I'm painting up archers currently. The chariots will be made into Tomb Guard chariots. Anyway, that'll do for another report. So thanks to my opponent, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. And if you fancy liking, commenting, and I don't know, say subscribing perhaps, that would be most kind. Goodbye.